everyone. Welcome to Iron Throne, your podcast specialized into Wargame of A Song of Fire and Ice by Cmon and Ed. This is an awesome board game. This is a special day from Iron Throne podcast. We want to introduce you to Fabio Cury, lead developer of ASOIAF Wargame from Cmon. He is a skilled person that collaborates actively to balance this game to make it more playable and enjoyable for all of us.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me here. I'm really glad that we can get closer to all the Song of Ice and Fire content creators and all the local communities, such as the Spanish community, which I'm really happy to see striving.
Thanks to you. This is a special day for us. We are so glad to be with you in this interview, and it's a pleasure to talk with you about this game. So, if you want, we start the interview with our first question. So, hello Fabio, we already introduced you as leader developer of this awesome game. But could you please explain with your own words what is the job of a developer?
Okay, so developer's main job is to keep everything balanced and running smoothly. But not just that, we also have to be very careful with specific interactions in the game to see if things are not too confusing, to see if everyone understands the rules the way they are written, and also to make the game fun, right?
Yeah, this is a difficult job, I think. But you are doing so nice. At this point, the game is so well balanced, and I hope this will be in future like this, constantly. Okay, second question. Please let the audience know more about you. What are your previous steps in Wargames before Cmon hired you, and how they contacted to you for this job?
Okay, so I started my Wargame life playing The Lord of the Rings from Games Workshop. And I've been playing this game for the past maybe 16 years, a little bit more. Apart from that, I've played a lot of other games, right? I try to get my hands on every miniature game and war game that I can. So I've played all the famous ones, you know, like Warhammer and X-Wing and so on. But how did Cmon find me? Well, I was one of their playtesters for the initial core box. You can actually even find my name there in the rulebook as a playtester. And eventually they needed the lead developers for the core box do other projects, right? Because Cmon does a wide variety of games and they needed to clear their schedule. And they needed someone to be 100% dedicated for Song of Ice and Fire for the years to come. And they said oh, we really enjoy your feedback. You have a keen eye for development issues. So we'd like to have you come over for an interview and see what can be done. And I discussed with Eric Lang and Michael Chenal. They enjoyed my feedback, I guess. And that was it. After that, I started working with them, and I've learned a lot from everyone in the team and everyone involved in the project, to the point that now I'm pretty confident that things will go smoothly for a long time.
It's an awesome story. Okay, the next question. What are the differences between developer and beta tester? How much time are you in this charge or position? And how long in advance do you try the news that will come out? 1 year or more, maybe?
Yeah, I think I've said this in other situations that it actually depends how long it takes for each unit or attachment, or let's just say box in general, to come out. Because some of them require more playtesting, others have more production issues. So all of this varies. But yeah, you can estimate that it takes a year for things to get through the pipeline from the beginning until it's on the shops. But maybe more, maybe less. I can't really give you specifics there. But the difference between a developer and a playtester would be that the playtester is usually a gamer and he plays well. And so once you hand him stuff, he'll try to exploit these things. Whereas a game developer, he will have to do that occasionally, but I need to see things in a big picture. And so I need to see if units are fitting the faction theme and things that a player won't necessarily bother looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So although I do a lot of playtesting myself, I do have entourage of people that help me out and play games and give me feedback, and also a lot of people that come over and I watch them play and take notes, because many times if you're playing by yourself, you have your head in the game and not in the development, and that can be a problem sometimes. So it's really, really useful to watch people play and just be focused on their game.
Yeah, I think so. It's important to have a third-person view outside the gameplay. Yeah, it's so nice.
Exactly.
Next question. What is your favorite faction at this point? Why?
Okay, so of the released factions, I would say that from a mechanics perspective, I like all of them because each of them has their same role. But just from a flavor perspective, like which is the one that I think is coolest, I would say I like the Lannisters because I like their political scheming and conniving, and I think that they really work together as a house to try to put themselves on the Iron Throne. So yeah, I think they deserve it. They should be the ones holding the throne at the end of everything.
Okay, nice answer. The next question, 5. We already saw our GenCon pictures of Cmon stand and all new miniatures, factions and units looked awesome. Could you please give us some details about some of those units you really enjoy testing?
Sure. Can you give me some specifics?
What are your preferred units or miniatures, characters, something like that?
Okay, but they don't need to be the ones at GenCon, right?
And this question is specific about this, about GenCon new miniatures.
Okay, so from the miniatures that were at GenCon, I'd say I really enjoyed, I can't really get into details about why, but I really enjoyed doing the skin changers. They are very interesting and very unique in the way they play. And so that was a fun challenge. But I really also enjoyed developing the Baratheon core box because they're the gateway for this whole new playstyle, right, with the loyalties, and that's going to be very interesting when more stuff comes out. So it was really challenging in a way of how to make one tactics deck that fits two very distinct playstyles, and also how to make these core units that can fit in both without losing their own shine, let's say. But in general, one of my favorite units is also during development was the Kingsguard, because they have just so many options, and that was pretty hard to do, but it was interesting as well, like as a challenge, as a professional challenge.
Yes, Joffrey unit is so unique, difficult to play, but a lot of fun, and all the Kingsguard is really interesting about as attachments for infantry units. It's so nice, infantry unit.
And each of them serves a very different purpose, but then once you get them into that Kingsguard unit with the Baratheon banners, if you use those banners right, you can just carve through your enemies, right? They hardly ever mind of what your enemy's defensive capability is, and they have very few drawbacks.
Okay, next question. Lots of people ask about Tyrells, shown in Renly's Baratheon Heroes box, Olenna, Marjorie and Loras. Tyrells will be included in Baratheon's faction, such as Tully into Starks, or they also may be a new separate faction in future?
Okay, so I'm actually gonna quote Michael Chanel from GenCon when he said that even though at the moment the Tyrells are very close-knit with the Baratheons, because of what point in the story arc we're working with, eventually, if it's in the books, it can be in the game. And so I can't make promises, but yes, they could be another faction, although there's just so many other things for us to do first that if that ever happens, it will be in a far, far future.
Nice to hear this. Next question, and how about the miniatures of Brienne of Tarth? In the GenCon pictures, we saw an alternative miniature of Brienne of Tarth into Renly Baratheon Heroes Box. This should be the first loyalty changer character, such as Tyrion Lannister with Targaryens in books. There will be more characters with two flavors faction involved.
So to answer this question, I'd say that even though it's not confirmed that that woman in armor is Brienne in the Renly Hero Box, I can say that yes, different characters will appear the same character in different factions if that happened in the books. Like I said, if it's in the books, it can be in the game.
Okay, perfect. Nice answer. Next question. Also, lots of people comment about the shortage of attachment on horseback compared to the flood of attachments on foot. Would you plan to balance this point with some heroes that ride in boxes?
So this is a hard question to answer, and it's not just development that is concerned in this case, so I can't really answer fully this question. But I'll say from a development standpoint that cavalry attachments are very difficult to balance because the cavalry in itself already has a lot of really good abilities that are not just innate to them, but they're usually pricey as well. So we are trying to not have an overload of cavalry attachments. And also, since there are fewer cavalry options than there are infantry, we try to focus always on infantry attachments. There are more things here to this question, but I can't really say any more about these.
Okay, don't worry. The next question. We are curious about how Skin Changers unit shown at GenCon works. We know that those Skin Changers might be attached into a unit that already have one attachment, ignoring the usual rules such as Raikon Osa or Ramsay Theon. Okay, also we know that the bear is a solo unit similar to Stark Wolves, but how about the eagle and the wolf into small 32mm bases?
Alright, so if I talk too much about this, it will go into spoiler territory, and I don't really want to do that right now. There's already a lot of cool stuff that we're posting online, such as the new game modes and so on.
Okay, this is a really interesting unit. We will see in future how this finally works. Okay, next question. Also, we notice that Ghost, the wolf of Jon Snow, is really unbalanced since there isn't any specific frequently asked questions regarding he can't be bows attached, due to there is a powerful combo with the Sword in the Darkness and It Shall Not End Until My Death cards involved. This Broken Wolf Ghost hurts, especially if we compared with his little brothers Cury Wind, Summer and Shaggy Dog. Did you plan to balance this in future, removing the bows to Ghost?
I don't see that as a problem as a developer. Yes, that's a nasty little combo, but you are committing all these vows and special tactics cards to a unit that has 2 wounds and can be picked off pretty easily. Yeah, he can do a lot of damage, right? And yeah, you can keep him alive, but I don't think that's enough to say that he is OP. The thing is that the Stark Wolves might seem weaker because they don't have this innate synergy with their faction, but there's the issue that you can actually 3 of them together. So that is a way of balancing things out as well. It's never just comparing units in a bubble, but you have to see their faction as a whole and how they play out. If Night's Watch could have 3 ghosts, then that could be a problem, but they can only have 1.
Okay, the next question. We noticed that Renly and Stannis Baratheon only may be included into an army as commander options, unlike other commander characters that also can be included into armies as regular attachments, with 2 or more flavors with the same miniature. Why about this restriction? And also, Cmon would consider to include more attachments options for those two characters in future, with Stannis alternative sculpt into Stannis Baratheon Heroes box, for example?
Okay, I can't really talk about the future. I'd rather just say right now why our decision was to have them only as commanders. And that is because it's mainly a flavor issue. So they are both amazing commanders, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And one would never be an attachment for the other. So Stannis would never fight for Renly, and Renly would never fight for Stannis. And the thing is, in no situation in the books, at least at the start of our timeline, were they being led by someone. They were always the leader, which is very different than the Starks, for example, where they assume many positions in their family. So most of the commanders have led an army or at least a host of people, at least in some point during their story or their life. Mm-hmm. And both Stannis and Renly were always leaders and never followers. That's one of the issues. There are more, but I think that's the one that sticks to me, is that you would never have Stannis, the rightful heir, being led by someone in battle. He's one of those get up and go kind of guys. Mm-hmm. And so is Renly in the books.
Okay, then I'm going to continue with the questions. Question 13. Also, we noticed that there is no restriction in the amount of new Baratheon cards that can be attached to the same unit. Nightwatch bows already have this restriction written into each bow card. So, theoretically, Stannis Baratheon players can attach the same card twice or even 6 cards, Oath of Duty, Tactical Approach and Baratheon Conviction, 2 copies of each. This is on purpose. There will be any future frequently asked questions that will nerf or balance this?
This is on purpose, definitely. I'm going to look through the cards really quickly, but I think that the ones that do get attached have really hard triggers for them to start working. Let me just read them.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that, like, vows, they can't really be removed, for example, whereas in Baratheon Conviction, the card is removed when they fail a morale test, right?
Yeah, but the other 2 cards, no. There's no restriction in the other 2 Baratheon cards.
Are they their Stannis cards, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing. In Oath of Duty, that's also not a problem because its trigger is when a friendly combat unit is destroyed. So that means that for you to use this card, you already have to have lost a unit. And I don't see it being a problem of it being accumulated with other cards. We've also tried these all, right, during playtest and during development cycles, and at in no point did we feel that they were breaking the game in any sense. And also, in Tactical Approach, this card is very good, but you do need to expend condition tokens. So once again, all these cards are a little bit more situational than the vows, and the vows you can keep changing them and reusing them because there's a vow that lets you get vows back, and there are lots of mechanics that circle around this. So you would say that the vows are like a pocket knife, you know, with lots of tools, where here the Stannis cards and the Baratheon cards that get attached to units, they're usually compensating for something or trying to reinforce a theme, but they're not as versatile as the vows.
Okay. The next question is the question of the interviewee. In this case, you, Fabio, you choose to be asked about what are the difficulties in making solo trays, like direwolves?
Yeah, what makes solo trays difficult is that the small solo trays, like the direwolves, are very maneuverable, and they can fit into these gaps, and I've seen people trying to exploit terrain to hold objectives, you know, places where only a direwolf or a small solo tray would fit. Also, since these are usually complementary units that aren't the core of your army, it gets a little strange when people look at them and try to make lists that circle around them. Like a year or a little bit more than a year ago, when my players saw that they could make 3 direwolf lists, and they started spamming that. And we were not really sure about its efficacy, or it was just something that it just looked so nice that players wanted to actually just put them in the table because it was fun and good to look at, or if it really was something that was having balance issues. In the end, we felt it was okay. There are so many ways to play around that, but on the other hand, for example, the siege engines, the large solo trays, they're very unwieldy and they're hard to move. So that is also technically a solo unit, and those are very hard to make because just of the way the tray shape is, it's hard for you to like engage them, like I said, maneuver them around the table.
Okay. Also related to this question about the direwolves, the new game modes, the rule about controlling objectives has changed. So now direwolves have a bit of disadvantage with controlling objectives against infantry units, because they just count as having 1 rank, but cavalry or infantry units have more ranks, so they will automatically control those objectives. Why do you design this change, and what do you think this will improve the gameplay?
Okay, before I just like to make a quick disclaimer that all these changes are still being tested and that they're not final, so we might just change them again, right? By the time that we're recording this, at least. But I'd say that we decided to make these changes because we felt that infantry units should be the main type of unit to hold an objective. And also, we were feeling that once you sat on that objective, there's no way for your opponent to mitigate that. He would have to just destroy your unit. That was like the only way. So now we have these changes to try and mitigate the situation where if you are savvy and you make them lose a rank and you have an infantry touching that other infantry with a rank less, that they at least no one is controlling the objective. We tried it out and we felt that was the best way to go. It also reduces a little bit of the advantage, like you said, for direwolves and cavalry, where they could just rush up to objectives and stay there the whole game. And now, once again, if they're engaged to something with more ranks, then they lose this benefit. So you can still claim an objective early on, but if the enemy plays his infantry right and engages you, you're not supposed to be holding that.
Okay. And how about the Targaryens faction? As we have already seen, this will be a full cavalry army, so they always count as 2 ranks units. This is a disadvantage for they or not? What do you think?
Remember that the core box is just the beginning, right, of where you should start playing and how you should think of this faction and how it rolls out during the games. So even with the core box, if you are afraid that you won't be able to get objectives, you can always take neutrals in your army. But I'd say that the Targaryens care less about objectives than other factions, at least in this all-cavalry Dothraki playstyle. Dothrakis don't want to sit and wait. They want to rush up and kill, and that's how you should be playing them.
Yeah, okay, it's true. And the last question, also, we want to know more about your apportations to make Baratheon's rules and units more balanced. We noticed that dual abilities in some cards and NCUs allows Baratheon's players to choose more effectively the best option in each situation. What are your apportations here?
Okay, this fits a little bit into their design, so I'm not 100% allowed to talk about this because design is mostly with Michael Chanel, but I would say that they have mechanisms to, in general, hit more, right? and also to reduce damage, at least not just with high defense saves, but with abilities such as the Master Warden, which cancels charge and flank bonus and rear. So that really helps you mitigate damage. So even though they have lots of options when they commit to an action, their pool of different actions and ways to win is a little bit reduced compared to other factions which have more variety, such as Free Folks or Starks. So basically, your Stark list can be very, very different from each other, even if they have like the same commander, just by switching units and attachments around. Whereas the Baratheons, because of the way their deck is laid out and the triggers, and also the way the units are acting out, it's hard for them. They usually will be fit to do only a certain amount of things well, but when they do that, they do it really well.
Okay.
At least in this initial core box situation.
Yeah, at this moment, okay, I know. Just release it units at this moment. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Fabio, and for this awesome and fully enjoyable interview. It's a pleasure for us have an international high-rank interview like you directly from Cmon. Best regards, thank you, and Valar Morghulis.
Thank you very much.